Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby and today I'm going to be filming my August wrap-up. It was a very busy month for me work-wise, but I managed to get 12 books read in August, which is crazy, but it's also because of the booktubeathon. I read 5 books during the booktubeathon. That's where the majority of these books are coming from. In the month of August, I read a total of 12 books. That amounted to this many pages. Sorry, feature editing me. I forgot to calculate it before I filmed this. For the number of genres I read 8 romances. So yeah, I think I might have a problem. 2 thrillers or mystery novels, 1 memoir, and 1 sci-fi dystopia. And then for number of ratings I gave this month, I gave 4 books 5 stars, which is probably like an all-time high. And then I gave 2 books 4 stars, 3 books 3 stars, 2 books 2 stars, and 1 book 1 star. Wow, that goes like almost in order of like the numbers and everything. So yeah, it was kind of a mixed bag this month. I read some really great books, like some new all-time favorites, and I read some really shat books. I read 10 female authors and only 2 male authors, which makes sense because I read mostly romance, so you know. I'm gonna be trying to be as brief as I can when talking about the ones from the booktubeathon because I already talked about them at length in my booktubeathon vlogs and wrap-up. So if you want to see more information about those books, I'll put the links in my description for my booktubeathon vlogs and my wrap-up so you can see that. Let's just jump right into the wrap-up. I'm really excited. The first book I read this month was The Light We Lost by Jewell Santopolo. This is a romance novel that takes place in New York City. It spans decades. It almost reads like a literary fiction in that way. It follows this girl named Lucy and this guy named Gabriel, and she works for this like TV show. She's like a producer on a TV show and he is a photographer. This story is just so gut-wrenching and beautiful and it made me cry, which I actually vlogged in my booktubeathon vlogs. Kind of reminds me of One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid because there's a love triangle in this book that is really powerful and you actually feel like you're rooting for both sides. At least for me, I did. Oh my god, it was just done so well. So good. It's a new favorite. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars and I loved it. The second book I read was I Found You by Lisa Jewell. This is a thriller. This story jumps back and forth between a few different storylines. So the main storyline happening is following this mom, Alice. Like, they live on the beach and she sees this man walking on their property and he says he doesn't know who he is, he doesn't have any memories. And then it follows another girl who her husband has gone missing. It's also jumping back 23 years ago to these flashbacks of these teenagers who were on this island. All these stories going on and they all start combining in the most interesting ways possible, and it's really hard to predict where this was going for me. This is another book that was like ended up being sad as hell, and it was really good, really like heartbreaking shit that like you know, because the reason why I wanted to read this was because I loved Lisa Jewell's book Then She Was Gone, and so I've been wanting to read more books from her and I'm so glad I did because I've found a new favorite in this one too. I loved it so much. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars too. It's also a new favorite of mine. So good. Highly recommend it. Right, the third book I read this month was Boy Erased. I listened to the audiobook for this one, and this one is a memoir that's about this gay kid who goes to a gay conversion therapy camp church thing because his parents are preachers and they're super homophobic. Really liked the story. I really liked the epilogue. I think the book did start to drag a little bit in the later parts of it because the entire book pretty much takes place while he's a teenager at this camp, and I feel like in the epilogue he talks more about his adulthood part of it, and I would have liked him to expand more on the adulthood part of his life just a little bit instead of just clumping it all together in the epilogue. So I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. It was really great and I can't wait to see the movie adaptation in November. Fourth book I read was Getting Schooled. This is a teacher-teacher romance and also a first loves romance. So this book started off funny as hell. I was laughing so hard, like out loud, cracking up, and then it started to get very insta-lovey and the characters started getting really annoying, and then I didn't like the way this one ended at all. Like, it's like the anti-female empowerment ending, if you know what I mean. So mediocre at the end, and I was so disappointed, and the main reason why I wanted to read this one is because I thought it was going to be more of like a forbidden romance, like 2 teachers that were secretly dating that weren't supposed to or something, but it's actually like 2 teachers are teaching at the same school that they used to go to high school at, and they were high school sweethearts, and now they're teaching at the high school they went to. I didn't like it. Ended up giving that one 2 out of 5 stars. It was okay. Alright, and the 5th book I read this month is Fahrenheit 451. This is a sci-fi dystopia classic novel, if you haven't heard of it. It takes place in a dystopian future where books are banned and firemen are assigned to burn books. Like, firemen don't put out fires, they go and they burn books because books are legal. I thought this book was okay. Like, it definitely had some powerful things to say in this book, which I did appreciate. But at the end of the day, it was very slow for such a short book. Like, this book was only like 158 pages, and I thought it dragged so much through some parts. The dialogue between the main character and his wife sometimes felt so like clunky and awkward, like not how real people talk. I don't know, like there were some parts of this that were very beautifully written, and then there were other parts that were just so awkward and like, but as much as I appreciate what it has to say, I was kind of bored while reading this, and so I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. So those were all the books that I read during the booktubeathon. So then after the booktubeathon, I picked up The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. The only one I've really loved from her is He Will Be My Ruin, and that was a 5-star book for me, and then all the rest of her books I've been pretty disappointed by, but this one, oh my god, you guys, this one. This is a romance novel that takes place in Alaska, and it follows this girl named Kala, who's originally from Alaska, but when she was 2 years old, she moved to Toronto with her mom because her mom was like, I can't deal with Alaska anymore. And her dad is a pilot who runs this like huge pilot plane company in Alaska, and now Kala is 26 and she finds out that her father is dying of cancer, and so she wants to go back to Alaska to like spend time with him before he potentially passes away. And so this story is about her going back to Alaska and back to her roots and discovering what's so great about Alaska, and it's a father and daughter story between her and her dad as they reconnect and bond again, and it's a hate-to-love romance between Kala and one of the other pilots, Jonah, who's kind of a hothead. I loved this book so much. I loved it, and I have this wild fascination with Alaska lately, and this book is just so atmospheric of Alaska. Like, it makes me want to go there so bad. And I love the whole, like, her dad and Jonah being pilots. They literally provide so much for their towns. The father-daughter relationship between Kala and her dad had me, like, crying, you know? It was just very, like, emotional. It was kind of like the last song, but, like, in Alaska. But, you guys, Jonah is, like, kind of the typical, like, manly man, alpha male, like, you know, kind of annoying, douchey love interest. Like, he's totally a stereotype, but oh my god, I loved him. I fucking hated him in the beginning of this book, and then he literally grew on me like a fungus. Like, oh my god. Like, by the end of this book, I was like, I love him! Yeah, this one was such a surprise. It was so good. 5 out of 5 stars. Like, this is one of my favorites of the year. I loved it. I loved it. I want to read it again. It's so good. The 7th book I read this month was Blind Kiss by Renee Carlino. This is another book that Atria Books sent me this month, so thank you to Atria for sending me both of these. And as you probably know, if you do follow my videos, I also have a love-hate relationship with Renee Carlino, because Before We Were Strangers is one of my favorite books of all time, but then every other book by her has been on my worst of the year list since. I'm pleased to say that this is actually my favorite book from her since Before We Were Strangers. Like, K.A. Tucker and Renee Carlino knocked it out of the park for their 2 new releases, I've gotta say. It was great. So this book is a romance novel. It follows this girl named Penny, who's a dancer, and this guy named Gavin, who works on cars. So this romance starts because these 2 characters participate in a blind kiss study when they're in college. It's basically like a psychology study where they want you to be blindfolded the first time that you kiss somebody and to see if there's still an attraction without seeing their physical appearance. And so they both participate in this study, and they become instant best friends after this study. And then she kind of like forces him into the friend zone for like 14 years. This book also does that thing that Before We Were Strangers does, that like it has their college relationship, friendship thing, and then it's jumping back and forth between 14 years later when she's married to another guy and has a kid with another guy, and you're trying to figure out what exactly happened in their relationship that friend-zoned him so hard. Really good. It kind of reminded me a lot of Before We Were Strangers in a lot of ways. So yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. It was a very solid romance novel, and I'm very impressed and happy that I like this. Alright, the 8th book I read this month was 180 Seconds by Jessica Park. This is another romance novel that takes place on a college campus, and this one actually also has to do with a psychological study that these people are doing where you have to sit and stare a stranger in the eyes for 180 seconds, which is 3 minutes. The thing that I liked most about this book is the main character and her social anxieties. She's actually like one of the only characters I've ever read that I really related to a lot of the social anxiety things that she was saying. Like, you know, like she would say things like, every day is a reminder of how completely different I am from my peers, a constant sense of my inability to be be social and happy and emotionally unchained. I related to her so hard, okay? I was loving it when I first started this. And then we get introduced to Esben, participates in this study with her, and he's this like huge social media star. And then Esben is this way too perfect, nice guy that's like not even a real person. Like he has no flaws. He's just perfect. He just like saves puppies all day and like, you know, like he's too perfect. He doesn't exist. And then I was annoyed because her anxiety basically just went away because she got a boyfriend. Like her anxiety just like disappeared just because she got a boyfriend, and I just thought that that was kind of unrealistic and annoying. I just didn't connect with Esben. I didn't like Esben. He was too perfect to be a real human, and so I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. The 9th book that I read this month was The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. I have finally read a Mariana Zapata book, you guys. Finally. I know I've been recommended by her books like 10 million times on this channel, and I loved it! So this one is a romance that follows this football player and his personal assistant. Aiden Graves is a Canadian NFL player, and Vanessa is his personal assistant of over 2 years when she realizes like she hates her fucking job and she hates working for him, so she decides to quit, and he's kind of acting indifferent about it, like he doesn't really care. And then 2 months after she quits, he reaches out to her asking her for something that he needs help with, and I don't want to spoil you or anything because, you know, it's not really in the description. So oh my god, you guys, this book has one of my favorite tropes in a romance novel, and it was just done so well. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, like if you don't care about being minorly spoiled, then I can put in the description what exactly the trope is, but I fucking love when romances do this trope. It's just the best. And also, like, Aiden is such a unique character, you know, because he's a Canadian vegan NFL player. Like, Canadian and vegan and an NFL player, and he's huge apparently. Like I was thinking like Henry Cavill huge, like a giant person. Him and Vanessa were just so fucking cute, and like this is the slowest of all the slow burns I have ever read in my life. Like it's a slow ass burn romance, which was fucking great, and it was exactly what I was in the mood for after reading some romances that were very insta-lovey. Every little moment that they had together, it was like finally, and then it was like no, they're not getting together yet. Oh my god, like so much waiting. So good. I was giddy as shit when I was reading this book, okay? I was like, oh my god. Like that one elevator scene. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. I was like, so cute. And that thunderstorm scene. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. This was a good one. If you like romances, check this one out. It's so cute. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. It was fucking great. The 10th book that I read this month was Dear Aaron by Mariana Zapata. I was just on a Mariana Zapata streak after The Wall of Winnipeg. I was like, I need more of this. And unfortunately, this one didn't work as much for me as the other one. It follows this girl named Ruby Santos who's 23, and she's emailing this soldier that's overseas. Like she doesn't know who he is, they're complete strangers, but through the like Help a Soldier Foundation, whatever, she's able to reach out to one soldier and email back and forth with him and like send him care packages and all that kind of stuff. So she reaches out to this soldier named Aaron. For the first 260 pages of this book, it is nothing but instant messages and emails back and forth between these two characters. At first, when I started reading it, I was like, this is a really interesting format for a book. Like, it's nothing but emails. Like, you don't get any point of view. And after 260 pages, I kind of was getting bored and I wanted to slam my head into a wall because, like, I'm just reading emails. This format just didn't work for me. And like this one's a slow burn too, kind of, but it's only because the first 260 pages are just emails. These characters, I just couldn't connect with these characters as much as I would have liked to. I mean, Aaron was like okay, but he was kind of like your typical male love interest. Like he didn't really have anything that like stood out to me about him. Ruby was like relatable at times, but mostly forgettable. I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars. It was pretty disappointing, but I'm not gonna give up on Mariana Zapata because I love The Wall of Winnipeg and Me so much, so I'm gonna have to check out her other books soon. Right. The 11th book I read this month was Looker by Laura Sims, and this is an ARC that I received from Scribner. This book comes out January 15th next year. Let me read you what it says on the back of what this book is about. Dazzling, razor-sharp debut novel about a woman whose obsession with a beautiful actress on her block drives her to the edge. So I was really excited to read this book because I was like, oh my god, I love books that follow stalker main characters who become obsessed with people. Reading that description, I thought this was going to be an amazing book about this girl getting obsessed with this actress on her street and like, oh my god, what's it going to build to? And if you can't tell, this is a really short book. It's only like 160 pages. It was still boring as hell. You know, I think this book is mismarketed because I feel like I might have liked it a little bit more if I knew what I was getting myself into, but this isn't really about the actress. This is about the main character going through a divorce with her husband and being really unhappy because of that. Like, her husband's basically leaving her because she's infertile, and then she's kind of like envious of the actress living across the street because she can see her and all of her kids and how like great her life is, and she's just kind of like jealous. I honestly found myself wondering what exactly the point of this book is. The whole time I was like, is this building towards something that's gonna happen at the end? But then I read the end and I was like, nope. Ending was incredibly lame, probably one of the lamest endings I've ever read in my life. I was like, that's it? That's the end? Are you sure like this isn't part one? Or what a snooze fest for how short this book is. It was so boring. I don't really know what the point of this book was. I gave it 1 out of 5 stars because I couldn't think of one thing that I really liked about it. But you know, I don't know what it is with these thrillers comparing themselves to Hitchcock lately, because The Woman in the Window did that too, and then I thought The Woman in the Window was so boring, and this one does it too. They compare themselves to Hitchcock. I don't understand. And the last 12th book that I read in August is Trust by Casey Diam. Thank you so much to the author for sending me this book for review. This one is a romantic suspense novel. It follows this girl named Paige and this guy named Caleb. Her whole family was assassinated and she was supposed to die that night, but she got away. And it starts off with the scene, like the very first thing in this book is the scene of her family getting assassinated. And then it follows this guy named Caleb who works for the guys that killed her family. And then it takes place 5 years later. It's about her romance with Caleb, and it's almost a little insta-lovey. You know, I thought this book was okay, but I felt a huge disconnect with the characters. Like, I just couldn't relate to them at all, and they felt like very 2D characters to me. I don't know, I find it a little hard to believe that Paige would be so trusting of a stranger when it's like her whole family was assassinated and like you gotta know that you're being hunted. So I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't bad, it's just not necessarily something that I'm gonna remember. Those are all the books that I read in August. It was a lot of books. It was a lot of romance. Like, let's be real, it's a lot of romance. But I read some really fucking great books this month. Like, I'm so happy. I know that I didn't stick to my August TBR, like, not even like a little bit, but it's okay because I tried to read most of the books on my August TBR, and when I started them they were like feeling like I might be put in a slump because of them, so I stopped and I picked up something that interested me right away because, as I've said so many times, I'm an impulsive reader. I just read whatever I want to read in the moment, which is why TBRs don't normally work for me, but you know, I try to stick to them anyways. How many books did you read in August? What was the best book you read in August? What was the worst book you read in August? Thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys next time.